Hello, everyone. I'm Colleen. I'm Dr. Coulter. I work here as an associate director at Purdue University in the College of Engineering. I'm associate director for graduate recruitment and success strategy. And I am here to talk to you about preparing for graduate school and provide tips for a strong application. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me. If some of you could just put a note in the chat that you can hear me. Awesome. Yes, that's what I like to see. Good deal. Okay. So I love those. Those are fun. All those little emojis that go up in the air like that. It's like balloons. All right. So I'm going to talk with you now about preparing for graduate school, tips for a strong application. I'm going to share my slides now. And I will also send you slides after this. It'll probably be a little later in this week, but all of you, since you've registered for this webinar, I have your contact information and I will make sure to email a copy of the slides to you so that you have them to refer to. Okay, so here I just wanted to mention that we do have, and I'll mention this at the end too, but we do have another event that's upcoming where you can get a fee waiver, an application fee waiver. And again, I'll talk about this in a little bit, but I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned this. This is also on our website where you found the webinar registration. And you can also click this QR code to then be linked to where you can sign up if you haven't already signed up for this particular event. And it gives even more information than what I'll provide tonight. And it'll also provide you with a number of opportunities to talk with faculty and current students and to participate in some panels. So just wanted to make sure that you know about that opportunity. So application tips, what am I going to talk about this evening? So I'm going to talk about, well, this evening here in West Lafayette, Indiana. It is 6:04 p.m. Eastern time. So evening for me, but not for everybody on here. So I'm going to talk about the application process, the timeline for preparation to apply, the different types of degrees that are available in graduate school, parts of the application, for example, recommendation letters, statement of purpose, and I'll talk a little bit about funding as well. So the application process has a number of components, and it is very different than when applying to undergraduate degree programs. So the first piece of information I like to make sure I say to everybody directly is that directions may really vary across different programs and different colleges that you apply to. The process for application review is done by faculty, done by professors in the department. Sometimes you might be asked for publications. Usually that will be specified, though. If that's a requirement, it'll be specified in the directions that come from the department. And I'll talk about a few different areas that you're going to look for the application requirements. Some do expect you to submit GRE scores, graduate record examination scores, or they may require a different test. So again, this is all detailed in the departmental and the university requirements. Some programs in graduate school require experience. They may have wanted you to have experience in the field somehow, or they may want experience from when you were an undergrad. Did you work in a lab? Did you have an internship, a co-op, and so on? The final decision, at least for Purdue, and this is the case in some similar universities, the final decision comes from a central graduate office usually. And so in this case for Purdue, it comes from the provost's office. So there's different offices that work together to do quality control checks on the process, materials that are submitted, and then recommendations that are made. But again, recommendations come from the professors in the department at Purdue. So this can take months, and we work on it every year to try to make it take less time, but it is an intricate process and it's very specialized. And so that's a lot of why it takes months to process the documentation and get it reviewed. An application is only considered complete when all the pieces of the application have been received. So one of your goals is before the deadline, is what I always recommend, at least a few days before, that you get all of your application materials in. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to go about that and organize or operationalize that process. One of the things you want to do is make sure you look at all the deadlines, calendar them, and get a list together because they're going to be around the same time, but may not be across, because I'm sure you'll apply to different programs at different schools, and they'll have differing deadlines. And you always want to check the minimum requirements, make sure that you're meeting the minimum, but then also what does the school or the department where you're applying, what do they expect beyond what that minimum is? So the timeline, to make sure that you can meet these different deadlines they're often in December, maybe even in November. So I would say start around November 1st or November 15th. And this would be when you're applying for the fall. So the most common entry term, or when we get the most applications, is for the next fall. So right now we're in fall 2025, and we have deadlines in November and December that are for students to then enroll in the following fall. So they would apply in fall 2025 and then enroll in fall 2026. Now, September or October, so really, I mean, right around now, you want to make sure you have your standardized tests scheduled and that you know you're going to take them in time enough to get the scores back and get them to the institutions. The other thing you're going to do is start drafting or writing your essays, and I'll talk a little bit about your approach to that writing. You'll want to request letters of recommendation. It's really important that you identify who you're going to get recommendations from. You'll usually need at least 3 of them. And so you want to make sure you have 3 people to ask about about giving you a strong letter of recommendation. Also transcripts. So requesting transcripts, you want to make sure that you request them from every institution where you've been given an undergraduate grade, or if you went to, if you've completed another graduate degree, you want to submit that too. So all your transcripts from higher education institutions. So then what do? We get all that information together in September and October. And then in November, what do? Well, we complete the application. We remind recommenders of the deadlines that are forthcoming, and you verify your completed application is received before the deadline. So this is why you try to submit everything before the deadline, ideally a week before, but I know that doesn't always happen, but at least a few days before so that you can verify that everything's there. And you can usually check within a system. I know at Purdue, you can log into the application and you can see its progress. So you can see if everything is complete by just double checking yourself in the system. So many programs, they begin making decisions in January, from January to March, really. And it is pretty standardized. It doesn't mean everybody does it in the United States, but most institutions with graduate programs will ask a person to accept an offer by April 15th, or they could take back the offer, I guess, or rescind it or give it to somebody else. So that's why by April 15th, usually that's the date that they want you to let them know if you'll be accepting it. I'll make sure I show that slide when I talked about that other event where you can get a fee waiver. I'll show that again at the end. Remind me if I don't. So, what is the difference between all of these different areas of the university? So, the reason I point this out is because when you apply, as I was saying, you'll apply to a main portal that's in a graduate school, a general graduate school, or something that is held university-wide. And in this case, it's Purdue Graduate School or Provost's Office, graduate programs. And they list the minimum requirements. So they'll say, here's the minimum requirements for all graduate school applications. And then you need to go to the college graduate office, um, which is where I am, with questions about just general process for the College of Engineering. So there's a college graduate office that acts as liaison. And then there's the individual school graduate offices. So the main two places you look at the general graduate school for minimum requirements, and then you'll look at individual school graduate offices. Like if you're applying to mechanical engineering, the mechanical engineering graduate office is where you would look for the mechanical engineering additional requirements and information on how to apply. Now, college graduate office again is where I am in the College of Engineering, and I act as a liaison between these two. So I can help you with questions there that you may have, or if you need me to direct you to somebody, or just general help especially in the beginning of the process. So I covered most of those things here. And then this is one of the most important things that I think that I talk about in this session, especially given the stage that a lot of prospective students are in at this point, is they're trying to decide what is the right graduate program for me. I know I want to go to graduate school, or at least I think that I do. And I'm wondering, should I get a master's? Should I get something else? So here's the difference between two very common graduate degrees. So there's the master's and then there's the PhD. So there's a couple of different ways you can go with these particular graduate degrees. Now, the master's is 30 credits and the PhD is usually 90. The master's might have a thesis, so that would be the thesis master's program, which includes research and courses, or the non-thesis, which is just courses only. It may take 1 to 2 years. It really depends on if you're going full time and what type of program it is. And the careers that require a master's usually are requiring some sort of specialization that separates you from just your undergraduate curriculum, management positions, middle management positions, and some research. So there's a lot that you can do with a master's degree. There's all different kinds of masters. I've not even covered them all in this because there are professional master's degrees as well. There's there's the PhD. Now, some students right out of undergrad may apply directly to the PhD, and there are some programs that do allow that, and they are direct about saying whether or not that's available. Some programs require that you've completed a master's first and then that you apply. Usually there's some sort of credits that can go toward the 90. There's a certain amount Now, Purdue will recognize that you got master's credits and however many they are, but it still could be that there's a maximum that can actually go toward like your plan of study or your number of credits that's really, or your courses, your coursework. Like this is something that you have to look at what the particular program will allow, because generally it's like 9 to 12 credits that directly transfer. And then, like I said, they may recognize it on your transcript that you did a 30 credit master's, but they may still require that you do more credits within their program. So the thing about doing a PhD is that most of the credits end up being research credits. And that is really varies across institutions and across programs. But the majority of that 90 credits is research. Now, a dissertation is what separates the master's and the PhD for the most part, because a dissertation is your opportunity really to showcase how you have become a producer of knowledge. And so when you write a dissertation, it's essentially a book. It could be a compilation really of papers, but it's done in a specific format to show that you can conduct an independent research project. It takes 3 to 5 years after a master's, and you can do careers in research and development, leadership, academic positions. If you want to teach, if you want to get into academic leadership, a PhD or some sort of doctorate level program is what you'll need. So that's just the general difference. Obviously, time is a big one. A thesis is a much smaller piece of research or piece of a research project that you've done, but it is a write-up, and in a lot of cases you do have to defend it, just like you have to defend a dissertation. But again, that really can vary. So parts of the application, just so everybody knows, it's hard for me to answer in the chat right now, but I will try to get to some of those questions at the end of the talk. So parts of the application, online application form and fee. So the fee here that is mentioned, I want to make sure I point out that graduate application fee waivers do exist. And again, that's on September 28th and 29th. You can attend a graduate showcase with us, and I'll provide information on that at the end. And that way you could get a fee waiver. So online application form and you pay the fee, statement of purpose, personal narrative, letters of recommendation, standardized test scores, TOEFL or IELTS, if appropriate, grade point average, which can, for US institutions, it's generally done on a 4.0 scale, but we do recognize international universities. We know that they're on a different scale than this. So don't feel like you have to translate your GPA into a US formula. Transcripts from all higher institutions of higher education where you've taken courses. And then this part at the end could go into a resume or a CV. So previous work experience, research experience, and activities. There are a lot of applications that have fields where you'll need to enter this information individually, but then they also offer, at least our application system and a lot of others, offer you an opportunity to attach a resume or a CV. Standardized tests. So there's all different kinds. And again, the programs will tell you what is required, but this is just to show you that there's GRE, there's a general one for the general test, but then there's also all these other specialties that GRE offers. There's a GMAT for those of you that might be doing like an MBA or an MBA/degree in engineering, and then English proficiency, where there's TOEFL or IELTS, which is generally recognized here at Purdue. So I see right here that somebody did ask, I see this in the chat, and I just want to point this out. Somebody asked, is there any preference for using a resume over a CV or the other way around? It's generally academic to have a CV, but you aren't expected to have one when you apply. So we just say resume or CV. Usually it will state that. I mean, I can't speak for every program, but what I can say is that generally across the board, it's your choice. But it is more academic to have a CV. So GPA, transcripts, and diploma. So transcript, so your official list of classes and scores. You might need a copy of the diploma from international schools. A name on a transcript really needs to, I mean, this says should, but really needs to match the name, spelling, and order that's on your application. So make sure that you write your name exactly the same way, so that this is because a lot of this stuff comes in piecemeal and can be missed or lost. Also, for verification purposes, things need to be these names need to be the same. And then grade point average, again, is often done on a 4.0 scale in the United States, but we do recognize that international universities don't always use that. They use all different ones. So GPA, transcripts, and diploma, again, really will vary by what country you're from, what institutions you've attended. And again, if you have questions about that, you want to make sure you contact the main, either the program administrator or the graduate school. Letters of recommendation. So these are really important. You want a letter from a professor that's recommending you to a graduate program. I usually say make sure you have 3. I would say 2 professors and then one other, like advisor from an internship or a co-op, or advisor from some leadership activity that you did. So just make sure that it's predominantly academic, but also make sure that it's someone who's willing to give you a strong letter of recommendation. Because you may have taken a survey course and done well in it, but there were hundreds of students in it, and the faculty member may decide that they will write you a letter, but it's just going to be a general form letter that, yes, this person did well in my class. You want somebody who can really speak to who you are and what your strengths are. So you want to get to know your current professors. There should be, so there is a question in the chat. Do the professors need to be from our school specifically? I have one I know very well who recently took a job at a different university. That is absolutely recognized that happens. I would say just remind the faculty member, I know you're at this new institution, but remember I attended such and such, I attended institution X while you're working at institution Y now. But if you could just recognize that these are the years that we got to know each other, and this is the location of where it was at. Just remind your professors. Of course, some of them go on to other universities, and that's just how things happen. So again, select professors who can talk to your strengths and give plenty of notice. So you want to start asking them now for applying by one of the fall deadlines. So if you're applying in November or December, make sure you're asking people now so that they know how to get prepared. Also, make sure you can ask them however is most comfortable for you, whether you see them in person or you want to set a meeting or you want to ask them on Zoom or you just want to write an email. Make sure that you provide them with the deadlines provide them with your resume or CV, and provide them with how long you've known each other, when you met, what course it was in. If you want them to mention that you got a certain grade in a course, then you have to give them permission and you have to explicitly state it. So state it in writing to them. Make their job as easy as possible, which means send reminders. Send this email that has all the attachments and all the deadlines and if there's some sort of form that they have to fill out for a specific university, make sure they have all of that in one email and then forward that to them again with a reminder, or, do several if you can, because I love those reminders and most people do. It makes everything easier. So keep following up and know that's not annoying to follow up. Know that that's a good thing. You're just trying to help them. Again, I'm going to say this. Would you be willing to write me a strong letter of recommendation? That's the main question that you want to ask. Again, if there's several universities that you're applying to, give them all the university names and programs and the deadlines so that they have them. Another question, I'm grabbing a few of these questions in the chat that directly apply so I can make sure that I'm getting your questions answered. Somebody ask, would this advice also work for professional letters of recommendation? Like if my internship mentor has changed her company recently, can I ask her for a letter? Yes. You can follow your mentors through their careers. That is a absolutely acceptable thing to do. And again, just remind them where you met them and where you worked with them and what you want them to speak to. So absolutely, it applies to professional letter writers, student leadership, advisors, really faculty, anything. So now we're moving on to statement of purpose. So this is something you want to start drafting as soon as possible so that you can go through several iterations and so that other people can read it and give you feedback. So this particular essay explains why you want to go to graduate school, and not just why you want to go to graduate school, but why you want to go to that specific graduate school. So if you're applying to Purdue electrical engineering, you want to know some details about that particular department, the faculty research that they're doing, the curriculum that they offer, something about that program that makes it so it's right for you. They want to see that you've done your research on these programs and that you really know why you want to go to graduate school. One of the things that we look for when we're reviewing applications for graduate school is we look to see if we see a person that is committed and that wants to complete this process. We want people in our programs that can succeed in our programs. So when you write this statement of purpose, you're really showcasing your skill set and you're saying, here's why I should come to Purdue. Here's why I want this particular electrical engineering program. Here's what I plan to do and who I see that I may want to work with when I'm there. Now, the specific directions might vary. There could be, some programs will say, write a 350-word essay on, why you want to go to graduate school, and they'll leave it wide open. There's others that'll give you specific prompts, so you'll need to pay attention to what those particular prompts are. Now, some applications may require a personal statement, or they might call it a narrative, or they might call it something else. But that is an opportunity. If you have both of them, that is an opportunity to then showcase some of your additional strengths beyond, beyond the very specific statement of purpose of why you want to go to graduate school, why you want to go to that graduate school, who you want to work with, what you want to do when you're there. The personal statement gives you a little bit more room But again, it may come with prompts. I can tell you in general what we see, but until you look at the specific program directions, just keep in mind that specifics will come then. So typical specifications, 300 to 500 words. So what I recommend is sit down and write a statement of purpose and just let yourself write as much as you can about what you want to do, where you want to go, how you want to do it, and then cut it down, edit it, have other people read it, work with other people to refine it and edit it and make it so you don't have redundancies in there, so that you make sure you're very pointed about what you want to do. You are demonstrating your ability to communicate in simple, direct language. Don't use a thesaurus and find different more flowery words that you think make it sound smarter. Actually sounds smarter the more organized and the more specific that it is. Don't forget to these reviewers, they read hundreds and hundreds and have read thousands and thousands. So you want to make sure if you can be as specific as possible about your end goal and how you're trying to get there and how you've prepared so far, they're going to notice that, and that's going to stand out. So this, in summary, explains your purpose for pursuing graduate study, your purpose for studying at Purdue in that particular program, what your research interests are, or what your curricular or specialization is, what your curricular interests are, what experiences you bring to the table, what have you done in terms of how you could contribute to the program, what are your career goals, and then any special circumstances that you want to highlight. So think about this as showing mutual benefit, right? Why should we choose you, and why are you choosing us? Because you want we talk a lot about fit when we talk about career or we talk about graduate programs, and it really is true that you want to be somewhere where you fit, and we want you somewhere where you fit. I mean, when you talk to your own mentors, because you really want to be accessing faculty or mentors at where you're working or where your current institution is, you want to ask them, where do you really think I would fit and what suits my needs the best in terms of what I want to study? So get advice on that side of it too. So if you sit down to write and you're like, I don't know how to write this statement of purpose, this is totally overwhelming, answer 3 questions. What have you done and what did you learn from it? So just sit down and make this an exercise. Answer, what have you done and what did you learn from it? What are your future plans for this degree? So just think in general, allow yourself to just sit and draft this information. What are your future plans? What do you really want to do? What are your career goals? What's your end goal here when you've thought about, okay, I know I'm really interested in certain aspects of engineering. What type of job I want to do is something that, relates to semiconductors or something else. Even look at what careers are out there right now. Look at job boards to see what are the requirements. Go and look up at different companies that you might be interested in or different universities, and look at what their requirements are for positions you might be interested in doing in the future. And then think about, why are you selecting a particular program or an institution to meet your goals? What are the reasons? And again, this is you answering 3 questions for yourself, and then keep this on hand because it'll help you develop different essays that are required for institutions and for developing your statement of purpose. This will be the basis really of your statement of purpose if you sit down and intentionally, answer these questions. So what else? What else do you want to include in the statement of purpose? Well, here's some approaches that I list here and ways that you can get yourself writing. I think that one of the hardest things to do really is prepare some of the essays that are required. So as an undergraduate research, I did this, or therefore I can do these things. So as an undergraduate researcher, I studied such and such in this lab, and here's what I learned from it. Here's what I can do. Or maybe it's not that you were an undergraduate researcher, maybe it isn't research that you even want to do, but since taking a class in this area, I have been thinking about, now it prompted me to think more about what kind of an engineer I want to be, or how I want to contribute to society, or that I want to go into academia, or I know I never want to go into academia, I want to go into industry. Now I am ready to. So these are all just prompts, but they give you examples of, so the first one, did you do research? Maybe it's the second one, maybe it's a class that inspired you to think about grad school. Or the third one, during my time as president of such and such organization, I learned to, I was in, say you were president of your robotics club, and then you learned to do a certain type of mechanical engineering. And I'm looking forward to applying this skill as a graduate student. So there's all different ways that we arrive at this idea that we want to learn more about graduate school and use that as a prompt to help you write. So how to talk about your future plans? Well, be specific. What degree do you seek and why? So do you want to go for a master's? Do you want to go direct into a PhD because you know the type of research project you want to do? Express flexibility with your interests, but limit your interests to 2 or 3. So when we say express flexibility, it just means it's a while it's a good idea to definitely include some professors' names of people that have inspired you to apply to a certain department. You don't want to make it so that you're so specific that it sounds like if you only want to work with this one professor and that's who you dreamed of your whole life, and then they know that program knows that professor's not taking any students, and then they're not sure if you'd even want to come to that university. So you want to make sure you have flexibility in mind, because flexibility then allows you more opportunities to open yourself up to things maybe you haven't heard about before, that you don't know about from a particular university. Use general career plans. While it's good, in your notes, your own notes or your own drafting, to think about, oh, I dream of working at this university, or I dream of working at this company. Just speak about that generally. So like if you're talking about your career plans, for example, you don't need to name a specific employer, just talk in general. I'd like to be, a senior scientist in a national lab someday. And you don't need to say where or when, or, anything that's real specific. Use this kind of thing. University professor. I want to be a university professor. I want to be a national lab researcher. I want to work in the automotive industry and research and design, and so on and so forth. I want to be a government policymaker in some aspect of engineering or funding engineering. So why this particular institution? Again, I talked about that. Demonstrate familiarity. You want to make sure you show, how much you understand that particular institution and how you could succeed there. How are you qualified to succeed? And again, you only have a certain amount, you have a finite amount of space. So you don't need to embellish about that particular university and their rankings and their achievements, or, their certain promotional ads that you've seen that, they're this number ranking and that's why I'm applying. You don't need to use your space for those kinds of things. So before you submit, statement of purpose, you want to make sure, and this kind of gives you a checklist of things to make sure that you do. So you edit it down. Make sure you're brief but explicit. Remove unnecessary adjectives and so on. Again, I'll send you these slides and you'll have that information, but you want to, the long and short of it is, make sure you proofread and make sure you have other people read it. Read it aloud to yourself and really refine this thing as best you can. And if there's any questions, I'm going to look at the Q&A now. I haven't, so I'm going to start looking at the Q&A. So somebody asked first, before I switch from the chat to the Q&A, someone asked, how do you exhibit flexibility, especially when your research experience is in one field? Well, how you express flexibility is that maybe there's a few different faculty that you're interested in, or maybe you just say, these are my main areas of interest now, and I'm eager to learn more, and I'm flexible in terms of, you know, what the ways in which I might study my area of interest. I mean, it's really, you don't have to say a whole lot, but there's different ways to showcase your flexibility, really, by making sure that just don't say just one professor. Make sure you say, even if they're all in a very similar area of interest, name a few. Really, there's some simple ways to, you know, show that you really are eager to learn more about the program. Okay, somebody said if we have a GPA on the lower side, below a 3.5, is there anything we can do to boost our application? So it really depends on the program, what their requirements are for GPA, because they may require something that is above that. And if it's a straight up requirement, you want to ask them, like, is it a cutoff? Do they only look at applicants with a GPA of something higher, like say a 3.8 or something like that? Then you know that that program may not be right for you, because some of these programs are extremely competitive and get thousands of applications. So you want to make sure you apply to ones that most suit your profile. Now, that being said, make sure you have some that you think are a dream school or that are a reach. Make sure that you have some that are your target range, so that you have a variety of choices at the end. Now, how you can strengthen your application, if there's something you view as weak, you can mention it in one of your essays. You can say, you know, I'm on the lower end in this particular area because I had a really difficult first semester or something like that. If you have that you want to call out, or you can say, I really struggled in this particular course. It brought down my GPA, but here's how I've done better since. You can tell that story in your application. One thing that I want to mention is about funding is that there's two different types. So we have a number of students, a high percentage of our full-time graduate students doing research. I want to be specific about that. 70% are funded or receive some sort of funding. Funding sources come from different places. So there's external funding and there's internal funding. And we have a webinar specifically about funding tomorrow night with Dr. Beagle that you can register for in the same area where you registered, or on the same page where you registered for this particular webinar. External funding means it's from outside of the institution, and internal funding means that it's inside the institution. So there's all different types, and again, this will be detailed tomorrow night. The important thing to know is that when you apply, at least to Purdue, when you apply for a graduate program where research is being done, you are automatically considered for some of the fellowships and grants and assistantships. There's different types of assistantships where you might do research, you might teach, or do something administrative, and there's fellowships and grants. And so programs usually offer this amount or this money, or they consider this money and giving offers with this funding for those who apply for fall. Most of the money is given then. And so that's another reason that we try to put you on this timeline to apply for those fall application deadlines so that you can get considered for that funding. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I want to be able to answer more of your questions, but the funding process that's internal, you can ask about it, write to the program administrators, write to the faculty, ask how they do their funding or how you can become eligible for their funding, and find out from students. Make sure you get to talk to current students. If you can't find any for whatever reason, make sure that you ask a program administrator to send you some, student names and contact information for those that are willing to talk with you. And you can connect usually with graduate student organizations pretty directly as well. Some good questions to ask I've included on this slide, and you can reference it when I send you my slides. But ask professors directly, what makes a competitive applicant? What are your expectations for students? What professional development do you want me to have? Somebody wrote in the chat, I've done a lot of research and multiple different research programs, but I'm still not published, but I'm close. How do I express this? Well, just like that, you're close. If you've actually submitted something, say that it's pending review. You can do that. You can do that in your statement of purpose and the narrative. You can also write it on a CV or on a resume. So it's okay. There aren't always publication requirements anyway. So it's really more about the process you've gone through and what kind of skill set you bring to the table. So what are my recommendations for you for this fall? So if you're applying for these fall deadlines that I mentioned, set deadlines now for yourself and for your professors. Start writing. I can't stress that enough. Make it a goal for yourself. If you're applying for fall 26, make it a goal for yourself to start answering one of those questions related to the statement of purpose, or start drafting something about the things you think you want to showcase in a document like that. Schedule and prepare for the GRE if it's required. Look up the programs you think you're most interested in and see because all it takes is one, right? If one program that you're really interested in and there's 5 others, 2, but there's only one that requires a GRE, you still have to take the GRE, right? So make your plans for that. And start any fellowship applications, which you can usually, if they're external, you can find out from your own institution. But also there's fellowship lists all over the place. And there are some at Purdue. There's fellowships that are internal and external that we list on a site, and you can just look up fellowships list engineering Purdue, and it'll come up. And again, keep moving forward and hold yourself accountable for the deadlines. So this slide, I'm gonna answer more questions that are in the Q&A right now, but I want to put this slide up for you so that you see our Purdue Engineering Virtual Graduate Showcase QR code here for more information and to register. You can get an application fee waiver from that event. Participants are eligible to apply to Purdue graduate programs for free. You get 1 instance of a free application, which includes 2 programs. So this is on September 28th and 29th. And there's all kinds of like on-demand content that you'll get access to through an event platform and all kinds of resources. So make sure you check that out. Are applications evaluated on a rolling basis or all together after the deadline? Whichever is the case, does it hurt to submit a completed application perhaps a few weeks before the deadline as opposed to having it completed much earlier? It depends. Some programs will wait till all of the applications are in and they'll begin reviewing, and some will do it on a rolling basis. So that's something you want to ask the program directors or program coordinators. There's usually an administrator, at least at Purdue, there's usually an administrator who's the key contact regarding the application in a specific program. So here we have school administrators, and they can answer, their information is listed as the key contact for the program for graduate application information, and that's who you want to ask that. If we have a GPA, or I already answered that one, is it necessary to decide right away if I want to go into academia or industry? No, you absolutely do not have to decide that. One of the things though that we recommend, if you think you may want to go into academia, then you want to do research. Make sure you get some sort of research experience, and that could be in a master's program. So if you haven't done a lot of research already, but you know you want to start doing some, I mean, I would try to get a sampling of it at least, even if you're just shadowing somebody in a lab or shadowing somebody that does research on your campus or on a campus nearby. Get some experience, but you don't have to know for sure. I mean, you never really will until you know what job offers are out there, or what jobs are posted when you are applying once you're done with your degree. So, and your degree graduate school is an adventure, and there are a number of different opportunities that'll be presented before you that you never even would have dreamed of, right? You never even would have thought could happen. And so there's a lot of different pathways that you want to be open to. I was wondering if it's possible to apply before officially graduating. I'm currently finishing my degree this semester, but I'll receive my diploma in April. Yes, absolutely. Prospective students, most of the time apply before they're done with their undergraduate degree, and they just so once they're finished with the degree, they will then send a transcript that shows the degree completion. So that's the norm. So there's different rules. Somebody asked about the TOEFL test. I'm an international student, but I'm doing an undergraduate program in the United States. So depending on how many years ago your degree was earned, there might be a rule that yes, you still have to do the TOEFL. Or if it's recent, within the last couple of years, they'll say no, you don't have to do the TOEFL. So that is a university policy usually. So that's something that you can find in the general application requirements. When is it beneficial to submit GRE scores for programs where they are optional? So I always say that when it's optional, it's optional. So if the GRE is something that showcases your strengths, you feel that the outcomes of the test showcase your strengths, and the program said it's optional to submit the GRE, if it showcases your strengths, submit it. There may be other caveats that a program, for some reason, requires there strongly recommends that you submit the GRE. Look at if those caveats apply to you. So you want to, if it's optional, it's optional. If you can showcase your strengths with it, great. But make sure you look at the program specifics. And yes, in terms of funding, I'm getting some questions about who's qualified for it. So, or eligible, I think, is what this means. So international students qualify for funding, yes. But certain types of funding are for certain populations, right? So I can't just say that US students and international students are qualified for this specific type of funding. So there's internal funding that is for anybody who's coming into the program. There's definitely some that's designated just for everybody and it doesn't have any specific stipulations. But then there are fellowships that require certain specifics or certain criteria has to be met. But there's definitely funding for both international and domestic students available. Should I mention all my research experiences in my statement of purpose? This is a really good question. No, you don't need to mention everything. You can say, I've done several years of research in this specific area. Um, and then just highlight one that really is something that showcases your skill set for being able to start and finish some part of a project, right? So whatever showcases your strengths the most and aligns the most with what you want to do is what you really want to talk about. But you can always say, I've done research for 3 years, or I've done research for, this many semesters, and then just talk about one, because otherwise it'll get too muddled. You want to be very, very succinct in what you write and very intentional. If a lot of our efforts and accomplishments outside of coursework have been non-academic, how will reviewers value this? I would say think about the skills. What are the transferable skills that you've gotten that will then apply to this academic environment? That's the best answer that I can give for that. So also though, you want to make sure you say what was the inspiration for you to decide to apply to graduate school. So somebody asked about if you apply for the spring, does it limit your opportunity to be funded in case you are admitted? It might, because there's just not as much money. So the largest pot of money comes from the fall entry applicant or fall entry. So that's just because of the way the fiscal year works and how money is how grants or how fellowships are run or administered. So in the spring, yes, there are less opportunities for funding, but it could be they're applying directly to a certain lab and you already know who the faculty member is and they need someone on their grant. So there's very specific situations that can happen. So you mentioned that the transcripts must be the official version. Well, I don't know if I said that directly. So eventually, yes, you will have to show an official version, but usually when you apply, your transcripts can be unofficial and you can attach unofficial ones to your application and you have that opportunity to do that. And then you can request the official ones to be sent directly to the university from your undergraduate institutions. So yes, we do take the unofficial copies first. As a current undergrad student in my final year, can I apply directly for a PhD program using my final year project papers? So I'm not sure about final year project papers and when they would be available. But I can say that there are some programs that allow you to apply directly for a PhD, but you need to ask and look at their information available online. So someone asked if they applied for the spring. So if you applied for spring and you don't get funding, yes, you can apply for the fall. But I would really talk to the department. That would be my recommendation, is if you applied for the spring and you're told there's no funding available, yeah, I would definitely talk to the administrator or faculty member that you've been working with and ask them directly what they would recommend you do in terms of being able to be considered for more funding. One more question here. I'm through the Q&A. And the chat, will the application materials be holistically reviewed without more preference for some of the materials over the other? So most programs do a holistic review. Yes. Now, exactly what that means can vary. So they're going to consider all of the application materials. They absolutely are. I mean, that's the reason they ask for them, is so that they have all this whole portfolio of your, or record of, what you want to showcase about your interest in graduate school. So yes, the recording will be sent out, not at the end, but this week. So by the end of the week, I believe, is when it'll be sent. So as far as holistic review, yes, all materials are considered. Whether or not there's preference over one thing, if it's truly a holistic review, then it's all just weighed together. But some programs may say, like I had mentioned when somebody asked about a GPA, some programs may say, well, we consider all of the materials for those that meet these minimum requirements, and then they may have certain minimum requirements that you have to fulfill in order to be considered for that holistic review. So it's a holistic review, but you still had to meet some sort of cutoff to then be considered for it. So you want to make sure if there's a straight up GRE test score requirement, which you won't run into very often, I don't think, but it's something to make sure you ask about. One of the best things you can do is make sure that you communicate. So I can't stress that enough. And I think this will be the last thing that I mention now, because I know we're over time by 7 minutes, and I would like to be more on time. But communicate with your recommenders, communicate with program administrators, communicate with faculty, communicate with current graduate students in programs where you're interested in joining, communicate with your mentors now, identify who those are at your own institution or at your place of employment or in your clubs or organizations that you're in, national associations, identify who those people are and communicate. So I can't stress that enough. Communicate when you have questions, ask them, and good luck. I will conclude with that. Good luck to you.